Hello and welcome to Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. That's me. This is my podcast about finding success in who you truly are, in the gift of who that is. These are conversations I have with people who know what that looks and feels like, in the hopes that it'll be an inspiration for you to find ways to use your unique gifts in pursuing your passions, making your dreams come true, and engaging with the world in the way that we were created to serve. Now, I always hope these conversations get deep because that's where we find the best stuff. But listen, don't get it twisted. It's also about the fun of life, because if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. So let's dare to be brave, be free, be you together. Now, my guest today is a powerhouse. She is an award-winning radio personality, author, entertainment executive, television producer, and she has been recognized numerous times as one of Radio Inc.'s most influential women in radio. She was also honored by the Alliance for Women in Media with their annual Gracie Award for the National Radio Co-Host category. She also has an NAACP Image Award for Best New Author. Radio fans in Chicago remember her from her days working with Doug Banks on WGCI's Banks and Company, and over 7 million people in our country listen to her now on the #1 syndicated morning show in the U.S., the Steve Harvey Morning Show. She is also a proud wife and mother. It is my pleasure and my distinct honor to welcome to the Fearless Authenticity podcast a woman that I have looked up to since I moved to Chicago, the one and only Shirley Strawberry.
Hi, Jeanne. How are you?
I am good, girl. I am so excited to talk to you. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. I have a little congestion. Unfortunately, I like to be clear when I'm doing these things, but it's okay. But other than that, I'm fine. I'm so excited to be here with you. You know, it's a mutual admiration society because I just love you so much. We never really got to work together because you came after I had left Chicago, but you know, just great things about you. Whenever I got the chance to come back home, I would always listen to you. And I just love you. I admire you, and you carry on the tradition well. I mean, Chicago women in radio are something special. There's something special. I mean, you know, from Yvonne Daniels, if people remember her, Mary D. I mean, the list goes on and on. Wanda Wells, you know, so many great powerhouse radio women out of Chicago, and you're one of those women. And, you know, I just love you. And thank you for having me, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was so happy when we got a chance. We co-hosted an event for Barbara Bates Foundation in the fall for breast cancer awareness. And it was so nice to connect with you and finally get a chance to do it. And I'm honored that you mentioned my name with women that I listened to when I came here to go to college and I was like, oh, wait, maybe I could do that for a living. Maybe because I was doing my little radio show in college and like, this is fun, but can you really make money at this? Can you really have an impact and a thing? And that's, you guys showed me that was possible.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, no, we don't make as much as the men. Got to point that out. Got to point that out. That's an ongoing struggle, fight, war, battle. But yeah, you can make a couple of dollars at this. Yeah, and it's very rewarding because it's so much fun. You know, it's so much fun. It really is. It's a great gig. You can get it.
You bring up something I was going to talk about anyway. So we may as well start off with that because one of the things that, and I'm going to tell you a little story to lead into it, because our industry can be challenging. Many industries are challenging for women, and ours in particular, because especially when you entered, and even at the time that I entered in the early 90s, it was still very much a boys club, and it still is very male centered. But I remember, Karen Lightfoot, producer at GCI, said
used to be my producer. Yeah,
exactly. We shared her at one point. And there was a time when Karen said to me, when I was doing traffic and I was trying to do more things, she said to me, listen, Jeanne, there's only so many opportunities that happen for us as women in this business. She was like, but we always have the power to make it what we want it to be. And she actually used you as an example. She said, you know what? A lot of times this secondary role can be a range of things, from, you know, a feature person to a sidekick to a co-host. She was like, you want to do it like Shirley did it. And at the time you were Shirley Clark.
Yeah.
And she said, you got to do it you got to work it like Shirley Clark did. She said, Shirley is a co-host because she brings something to the table that is just as important as the main host, who the powers that be may value more, but you are just as valuable. And without you, that show can't happen. She said, that's how you work it. So the question I have for you, especially as you've seen the industry change a little, how did you deal with the reality of the opportunities that were available to you at the time when you entered the business? And how did you make it the best it could be, where you now sit and co-drive a show that is listened to nationwide? And did you see that trajectory for yourself?
Well, you know what? First of all, shout out to Karen Lightfoot, one of the dopest producers in the business. Yes. But shout out to Karen. But I didn't necessarily see it at the time, but I knew that in order to make some kind of inroad or stride in the business, you had to just be the best you could be. And not only be the best you could be, you had to make the lead of that show. You had to make him look good at all times. You had to be his alley-oop person, the yin to his yang, whatever, you had to think, you're the one that had to be on point because they're the star of the show. They're crazy, they're wild, and but you have to make sure that that show hits its marks and do all of those things. So, I'm not going to say the job was hard or anything, but it was challenging in that sense, because you had to make sure no matter what, he looked good. It's not about you, Shirley Clark, at the time. It's not about you, it's really about him. And this is his show. And in that, you'll be able to shine because, there's no denying that, somebody has to be the glue and the sensible one in the show, Somebody had to do it.
And some of us sit in that seat pretty well. We've both done that with Steve, me here with him locally and you there. Yeah. And I learned a lot from working with people. We worked with a lot of the same folks, Doug Banks and Tom Joyner at the same station, and Steve. And, I'm going to tell you, all of those guys taught me a lot about how to do my own job. What's the biggest thing working with these larger than life personalities? And holding your own next to them and watching them do what they do. What's the biggest thing you've learned from them? The biggest lesson about maybe life or work or whatever? Because Lord knows, meeting Steve in my mid-20s, I feel like a lot of the stuff that ended up in his first book, he tested out on me because I was going through all of that. He was like, no, Jeanne, you got to think like this. You got to do like this. And then later somebody asked me are you going to get the book? I was like, no, I lived it. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I was in the writing session, so I understand. Yeah, it was, what the biggest lesson that I learned from Steve, let's start with him, had nothing to do necessarily with radio, because he'll tell you when he first came in that I taught him radio. They brought me in his show based on the work that I did with Doug in Chicago. Because Steve was wild, Steve was wild and crazy.
Girl, we tried. So, we did our best.
They brought me in to bring him in. Oh, he's still every single day, right? So, but the biggest lesson I learned from him had nothing to do really with radio. It was about me personally, and he taught me a lot about confidence and commitment and the strength of a woman and knowing your value. He taught me things like that, because single parent, I was raised by a single mom, so I didn't have a dad in my life. So Steve was like that big brother, that uncle type. So I will say that he taught me more about life than it was professional. Now, of course, when you talk about TV and things like that, and I mean, he's the ultimate professional when he wants to be, because number one, above all, it's the jokes and it's the funny, because he's a comedian that's his excuse me, That's his trade. That's his profession. He is a professional comedian. So he loves to make people laugh. So, I mean, yeah. And I love for him to make people laugh. And I love that our show makes people laugh as well. But, other than that, yeah, I would say it's the life lessons that I learned from Steve more than anything. And that's what I'm most appreciative of, because he would
Agreed.
sit and talk to me for hours about stuff like that,
Agreed.
money, all kinds of things, a
Can I
wealth of
tell you?
knowledge from him. Hmm.
I told Steve, I ran into him. We did something for the station locally here. You know how you do the stuff for sales folks and everything, and
Hmm.
and we ended up moderating it. And it was the first time I'd seen him in years. And I told him, he introduced me to my financial planner. And he sat down when I was, and my mom had just passed, or no, my had my mom passed at that point? I think it was right after my mom passed. And he was like, Jeanne, look, he was like, you got a lot on you. You in your
Hmm.
20s. He said, don't make the mistakes I made. And he introduced me to my financial planner. I'm still
Mm.
with them to this day. And literally, it is the reason why I've been able to have my own business,
Uh-huh.
why I haven't felt at the mercy of the industry, which,
Yeah.
often happens for us.
Oh yeah.
Um, and things like that. But yeah, I would say the
Hmm.
same thing. And I'm gonna tell you, and the thing I learned from Doug, since we also shared him,
Oh yeah.
was the fun of work. He was like, how did he put it? He was like, let's go play radio today. And I
Yeah.
remember the first time he said that to me, I was like,
Hmm.
that's what
Hmm.
this is. And
Hmm.
I always try to keep that spirit. What's the biggest thing you've learned from the other
From
greats in your life?
Yeah, from Doug. It's funny you recounted that story. One time I remember us, because after the show, we would all go out to breakfast, usually on a daily basis. We would all go out and have a big breakfast. And this one particular day, I wanted to pay for it. And, so I took my little credit card out and whatever, everything, trying to give it to the waitress. And Doug just, you know, patted my hand and said, no. He said, I got this. He said, when you're fully responsible, fully able, to pay for this, then you can pay for this. In other words, that was a lesson right there. Don't try to, if you, I just wanted to be nice because he always pays for us. I mean, it would have been a struggle for me. I'm not going to lie. It would have been a struggle. But the fact that he recognized that, he saw the intention, the intent behind what I was doing. He said, no, I got this. When you can do it, then you do it, because he probably didn't want me saying, Doug, can I borrow a couple of dollars till paycheck, till
Girl,
payday? Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that was a lesson. He said, when you are able to do it, then you do it, not now. I got it now. I'm good.
I love that lesson.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
interesting how we pick up these things along the way, and how
Yeah.
people say one thing and how they live ends up inspiring something that sticks with us for going
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to, the work itself,
Hmm.
your career, even though you have done so many amazing things and worked on all these great shows, and you have all these other projects that you are interested in and do, radio has been this constant in your career and a
Hmm.
constant source of excellence for you. Was
Thank
there
you.
ever a moment that you knew that this was the thing that you had to do with your life? Or was there like a point where you were doing something else and it was a turning point where you realized this is a gift that I have and I have to do it this way?
Well, radio, you ask people what did they want to do, or and the question you're asking, when did you decide you wanted to? I've always wanted to do radio. Always. Growing up in Chicago, it's hard not to want
Right?
to do radio because it's such an excellent radio town. It just really is. We had so much beautiful music and all of that. I couldn't sing, I couldn't play an instrument, So why not
Say,
get on the radio and play other people's music and stuff? And I mean, it's just a city of the greats. I grew up with Herb Kent. How could you not want to be in that little box that Herb Kent was coming out? I mean, it was just in Chicago. That was just a dream of mine growing up there, being in radio. I've always wanted to do it, and we lived such a my mom raised us very strictly, my brother and I. We couldn't really listen to music on the radio, because of course that was the devil's music and
Right.
all of that. So that, when they tell you not to do something, in the morning when my mom would go to work, my brother and I would blast the radio. So, I just became intrigued with it at a very young age, and it's never stopped. It's just never stopped. And I still love it to this day. And radio was here first. It was here before all this other stuff we got going on. And I just love radio. I love it.
Wow. Have you ever had any moments where you died? It sounds like the dog is
You
not
hear my
happy.
dog?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Molly! Okay, go ahead. He loves to talk to me.
He's talking back. He's like, I want to be on the podcast too. And this is life. This is how life goes. Was there ever a time when you almost gave it up, or where, because the love is one thing, the possibility is something else. And I realize that those of us who've been able to have a career that lasts decades long, like, it's only been in the last few years that I realized, because even though I've made forays into television and come back to radio and things like that,
too.
The foundation is always there, and it is always my first love in the business. No matter how much I love doing all of this other stuff,
things.
The radio thing is where the love is. But I also look at other people who I think are just as talented, if not more talented than I am at this, who are not working in the business for one reason or another. And I go, wow, but for the grace of God, there go I. And so for you, what do you think is the thing that has kept you on this trajectory up? And also with the staying power you have, because our industry loves youth, right? Entertainment is a youth-focused industry. And so for us to still be working when we're either coloring the grays or have them, it's a blessing.
Yes, I definitely color mine.
It's a blessing, but it's also about what do you think that special sauce is? Have you ever thought about that? What is that special sauce that keeps you doing it when so many others have not been able to?
Yeah. When you first get into it, it's fun. You do it because of the fun. You do it because of all the perks. When we first did it in Chicago, when I first got into radio in Chicago, it was a party every night. It was just so much fun. Every night you're at this party, at that party, you meet all these stars and that was the fun, exciting part about it. But then, you talk to people and they tell you, it's about longevity. What are you going to do? Yeah, this is great now, but you're getting older. Time waits for no man or woman in that instance. So, you just try to, I don't know, you love it, but I guess your values change or whatever. It's still fun. I work with a great group of people. They're like family. I see them more than I see my family. That makes it fun, and then it's like, this is a platform, this is a platform. You have an obligation, a purpose every morning to get on this radio, make these people laugh, inform them, let them know what's going on in the world. That's my purpose, to do that, and it's like you kind of take it for granted a little bit if you've been doing it for so long. But when you sit back and think about it, it's a blessing to be able to do this. This is a major platform. We're in so many cities across the country and in the Bahamas and other places as well. So you kind of look at it, like that, I guess. Just be grateful, be grateful, and like you say, you get to do all the other things you like. And it's 4 hours out of your day. It's 4 hours out of your day. I thought about, leaving one time. One time I was going to be, I think not a flight attendant, but a ticket agent at O'Hare.
Girl, stop.
And this was a long time ago now. I think I was in my 20s or something. Yeah, I thought about it. And then I was reading the application. I was like, 9 to 5. Wait a minute, 8 hours a day? Standing on your feet all day? That's great if that's what you want to do. It's a great job, great gig. But then I was like, I started comparing it to our radio gig, and yeah. I was like, nah, No, I like radio, 4 hours a day. And, you get out there, and you service the people and you go on with your day, so that's why. And then, I'm going to go back to something we did talk about earlier. We talked about money and how women don't make as much. And so every time my contract came up, I was in a fight to the death to get, a few extra dollars here and there. And one time I was threatening to quit really badly. But my mother told me, God rest her soul, that my grandmother told her, if you can't make a dime, make a nickel. So that has driven me. If that has driven me, if you can't make a dime, you got more. You didn't get what you wanted, but you did get more. So if you can't make a dime, make a nickel. Okay.
And I love that. I love that one, because when I first started, I remember it reminds me of something an older entrepreneur told me, or more experienced entrepreneur told me. He was like, when you talk about having people invest in your business or partnering with people to do things, and you fear about giving up something or whatever, he was like, remember that 20% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
There you go.
That sounds exactly like, but I love that, if you can't get the dime, get the nickel. Because
yes.
Was that why you were looking for the ticket agent job, because you needed some more money?
Well, because I was so angry, and I was so mad. It was like, no, they're not going to do me like, I'll just quit. I can do other things, all of that. And then when I started comparing the two, I was like, nah, I don't think I'm built for that. I'm just not built for it. I'm not built for that. So that's how that happened. Yeah. But so, yeah, I took the nickel instead of the dime. And here I am 100 years later.
Right. Rubbing together way more than just a couple nickels and dimes. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say right now, sister. But too, I remember there was a time in my career, and I used to tell people, because I was working so many other jobs so that I could afford my rent and to do other things, to do my radio. I used to tell people that little remember temp agencies and stuff? I was always at the temp agencies. And one of my friends was like, well, you on the radio, why you? Because listen, that's supporting my radio habit. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it flipped. But I remember Bonnie DeShawn saying to me one time, right? Mm-hmm. One time saying to me, she was like, girl, listen, it's a gift when you could pay your rent and your car note off the same check. She was like, sometimes you got to split them. And it's all about perspectives. And I've always had somebody there to say something like your mama said to you that her grandmother said to her. Mm-hmm. And those moments are so important. And you give out a lot of good advice too, Miss Strawberry Letter. Even wrote a book about it and had a podcast about it and things.
I did.
And you're kind about it. It's no nonsense, but you're kind, and you hear some crazy stories. What other than the dime for the nickel, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? And then how do you use that to approach giving advice? Because you do it on a regular basis now.
The best advice I've ever gotten was probably from my mom. And I was going through a challenge. I was having my daughter at the time, and I freaked out totally because, I have that claustrophobia, anxiety situation going on. And I just freaked out. I mean, really, in the delivery room, I couldn't take it. So my mother, grabbed me and was like, look, where is your faith? Where is your faith? And when she said that to me, something clicked in my head. And it was like, you know what? You're right. You can't talk about having faith and, doing all these things if you don't exercise it in those trying times, in those challenging times. And so that was 26 years ago. My daughter just made 26. And from that day to this, that always drives me. It's like, where's your faith? Are you going to step out on faith, and all this? So basically that's it. My faith is really strong, and you only need the faith of a mustard seed, right? The size of a mustard seed. So yeah, that was that was really good faith. I mean, really good advice about faith that my mom gave me.
Listen, God only needs us to love him a little bit, and he'll do the rest. Once
right.
I realized that,
Girl, I had that baby like it was nothing. After she told me that, because it really clicked in my head. It's like, yeah, this is it. You can't talk about faith and do all the and say you're this and you're that, and then when the time comes for you to do it, and then you're a punk. No.
how does that play out though when things happen? Because I know a lot of times when we have a crisis or
Mhm.
when we have those moments like you did in childbirth, which is
Mhm.
a life-changing, life-altering,
Yeah.
painful situation. But a lot of times when we hit a crisis, we do forget our foundation sometimes because it
Mhm.
feels like it's been swept up from under us.
Mhm.
Do you have any sort of ritual or thing that brings you back to remembering
Yeah.
where's my faith?
Yeah, not a ritual, not a ritual, but I will say this. You know how people say breathe, breathe, breathe. I actually do that. I actually try and center myself and take a couple of deep breaths, because I mean, we're in this business. We talk to people all the time, but we still get nervous. We still, we're still human and all of that. I was nervous about coming on your show today. So,
No.
I was, but you was, but you have to just take a moment to breathe. You have to just, it's going to be all right. Don't be so hard on yourself. you know don't take yourself so seriously. Take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself so seriously. It's okay. Even if you make a mistake, that's okay too. That's okay. Well, in today's society, if you make a mistake, you might get canceled. So these are different times, but you got to take that moment. That's what I do. If I'm just really, really, like frantically nervous, I'm gonna just, okay, wait a minute now, just breathe, and then you'll calm down. You'll calm down a bit. So that's it for me.
Is that how you approach giving the advice that you do with the strawberry letter? Like, do you ever look at that and go, what am I going to tell this
All
human
the
being?
time. What the what? Your husband did what?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about the letters I always say, first of all, they're not made up. First of all, people think they're made up. They're not made up. No.
Nobody could make that up. I listen,
Even
as
in
a
my active
radio vet,
imagination. Yeah.
I know how to tell when something's made up. And I was like, I would know, none of us would ever even think of that.
Yeah. Well, how could you? You can't make this stuff up. And so, you approach it, and it makes you feel like, okay, well, my life isn't this. It might be this, but it's not that. Okay. So I really try to figure out some way to help these people. I really do. This is not my particular situation, but let me try to, really look at these people and see if I can help them, and you know what? I'm going to tell you something. That's how you mentioned Steve's books earlier. This is how Steve's books came about. Because when we were doing the strawberry, excuse me, I told you I'm a little congested. When we were doing the strawberry letters every day, what we noticed was just a pattern of women who had low self-esteem, who had, excuse me, who didn't know their value, didn't know their worth, and to be quite frank and honest, I was one of those women. There was a time when, I had no confidence. I had low self-esteem. I didn't know my value, my worth. I didn't. So maybe that's, some of why I can take these letters and get in these women's heads and figure out what they're thinking and how they're feeling and try and help them. Maybe that could be, one of the reasons. But I honestly want to help these people if they can help. But yeah, there are lots of letters that come in, and I don't know. I have no idea what to tell you, lady. There was this one woman I remember. She she had this dress on, this wide dress at the bottom, and it was windy this day, and the wind was blowing, and she never wore underwear, and the wind blew her dress up. And she was just out there for all the world to see. Now, what am I going to tell her? You knew you had on a big dress. You knew you didn't have any underwear. You knew the wind was blowing. What am I going to tell her? You know,
Man, that was a choice. That was a
Yeah.
deliberate choice.
Thank
Whether
you.
you admit it or not, that was a deliberate choice. And there actually some
Yeah.
things there are no answers for,
Right.
right?
And I don't care. Put some panties on, you know?
Even a tongue, ma'am. Just a little tongue.
Yeah,
there.
something.
Like, do something. Do
Yeah,
something
right.
down there.
And what are you writing us about? What are you writing us this for? You know, it's just
Because she wanted you
but
to know.
anyway, yeah, we get some crazy letters. But yeah, I think, you know, life experience, you do bring life experience into these letters. You have to. You know, there was a point where, you know, between marriages, you know, how can you, people would say, how can you, Shirley, you know, give advice? You're not married, or you've never been married, or blah, 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 blah. Well, that's exactly why I can, you know, because I can tell you, you know, maybe now from my bad marriage to this marriage, you know, what I did to contribute. I didn't blame anyone else. You know, I looked at myself. That was, you know, a lot of deep self-searching and all of those things. So yeah, you know, life experience a lot of times is, you know, what we do with those letters. We're not psychologists, psychiatrists, anything like that. You know, we just try to give common sense advice. What would we do in these situations, basically?
But you know, the thing that's beautiful about that, because that's kind of at the core of what I've realized with fearless authenticity. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think that this journey that I'm on now kind of started with Steve, because Steve was like, you know, you the gift, you know, you're the one. And I think many of us in the business, especially as women, because we get beat up so much, that many of us have these moments of, even if we have good self-esteem, we may not know our worth because we're not paid our worth. And when we ask for it, we're told we're not worth it. And all those things. And we equate that worth with our value, and it gets all twisted, because I've had those challenges as well. And even though people find that hard to believe, because we still get up and smile and get in front of the camera or get on the radio and do that job, they don't realize there are other things that go with it. What does
and we
it
look
mean?
good doing it,
Right?
We try to look good doing it, yes, all of that.
But what does it mean to you to bring your whole self to your work? Because that is something you've always done. You've been really honest, and especially on Steve's show. And I think Steve also encourages and allows that space for it to happen, but it's also your choice. And I think there was a point in time, especially when you first started in the industry, because it was still like that when I was there, when many of our colleagues wouldn't share anything about their personal lives for fear of being seen a certain way or wanting to be seen a different way and what they had created. So what does it mean to you to share your full life with your audience? I mean, your husband now, Ernesto, proposed to you on the show, and that's still one of my favorite moments, Shirley, because it's like, because it's our age, and it's still that love and the I mean, girl. Like literally, like you live in dreams, ma'am. But what does it mean to bring all of that to your show and your public life?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say this. I don't share everything because my mom always told me, you don't have to tell everything, Shirley. So, you know, you do keep some things for yourself, of course. But I mean, because we are you know, the people that we broadcast, that are listeners, we're them. You know, we're them. We just have a different type of job. They're going to their jobs. We're taking them to their jobs. We're at our jobs, you know, so it's like, I want people to be able to relate to me. And if they can't relate to me, you know, then they won't listen, you know, so you got to be transparent. You got to tell, you know, about you know, if there's a letter, for instance, to come in about domestic abuse, I was in an abusive relationship. I can speak on that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to relate to your audience, and your audience, of course, has to be able to relate to you. Otherwise, what's the point in listening? You know, if these people are just going to be strangers to you forever, you want them to feel like they can come to you and talk to you, and, you know, and all of these things. I'm them, you know?
And I think we would all be so much better off if all of us brought a little bit more, maybe not everything. You don't have to, like you said, some things are for you and for your private part. There is a boundary for that.
Right.
But I think a lot of times people forget that people just are people, and that
Yeah.
whether we're working together at, whatever our job is, or we're doing something where you're consuming the content we create, or listening, or watching, or
Uh-huh.
whatever it is you do, that we're just human too. And I love when we have those moments to be able to make that happen. And I wish,
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why I do this podcast and why I talk about the stuff I talk about, because I feel like that's when things change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There and people, this didn't happen initially. You talked about that earlier. We're in the keep it real stage now, if you want to use that term, and that's what we try to do. We just try to be as real as we possibly can. That's it. Maybe not initially when we first got into the business, but be yourself, be authentic, be yourself. It's okay. It's all right,
And
and
I
and
think,
that's go ahead.
no, I want to hear what you have to say, ma'am.
No. I mean, that was pretty much it. Be yourself, be more comfortable with yourself. And then I think that by doing that, then there'll be a lot more Jeanne Sparrows out there. There'll be a lot more Shirley Strawberries out there, and we can continue this cycle, just continue, raising these young ladies, and, letting them be who they are, and be confident, and be strong. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what you want. That's what you want. It's so funny because when I see people, sometimes now, if people will run up to me and say, "Oh my God, Shirley Strawberry, I've been listening to you since I was a little kid." And some people will get offended by that. And I'll just say, "Are you one of my children? I raised you." You say, "Yes," so it's cool. That's a good thing. It's an okay thing. We don't stay young forever. We're going to age. My thing has always been age gracefully. Just age gracefully. That's it. That's all. Just age gracefully. Keep doing it till you can't do it anymore. That's it.
What are your secrets to aging gracefully? What are the things you tell yourself? Because you know what, I'm gonna tell you, the first time somebody came up to me and said, "I grew up listening to you," it was a shock to me. But I realized, I was like, wait a minute, I was probably only a few years older than you when I was on the air, because I started when I was like 20,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, wait a minute. But now I'm responsible for
Yeah.
having talked to a generation of young people, and
Yes.
like the weight of that, like I
That's
even though I always wanted to put out good stuff,
yeah.
that moment, Shirley, was
Uh-huh.
life-changing for me, because I was like, wait a minute, I've been pouring into people,
Hmm.
young people, because you think about it, talking to people your own age, and you forget that kids
Exactly.
listen to you.
Hmm.
And that really changed, even though I think it didn't change the content of what I was talking about, because I'm still
Hmm.
me.
Uh-huh.
It also made me realize how important every word I said was.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. You are raising these people. This is your purpose, your responsibility. And we make it sound fun, and we're on there, cracking jokes and laughing, but you are responsible. These people are listening to you. That is, that's heavy. That is, when you really think about it, so while you don't, you just want to be responsible, and all of that, still be authentic, still keep it real, keep it 100, all of that, but know that you still have a responsibility. Are you their parent? No. Neither is the teacher. That when they go to school, neither is she, but there is a responsibility. They have to teach that student, and we have a responsibility as well. So when I am speaking, when I am on the radio, my audience is always in my mind, because I do radio as if I were a listener. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I can tell well, you're in radio, so what will the listener think? I could say it this way, but it may get a different or better reaction if I say the same thing another way, because you always have your audience in top of mind when you do radio, because you want them to be entertained and, like I say, informed. You want them to be.
And your service in our industry, I think, has always been, because you did it with Doug, you did do it with Steve, being committed to the community, not just extracting listeners from the community and saying, these are the things I want you to listen to and be a part of, but pouring back into it. I mean, from book drives to honoring women and teachers to doing the work you've done for, speaking on domestic abuse, feeding folks who need it. I mean, and I always know that has been a thing with Steve, but that's the thing that and when I say a thing, I mean an important priority and a passion. And your partnership, especially in LA, because I think in Chicago, that's always been sort of baked into our media scene, at least at GCI when we were there. Yeah. But when you went to LA, you brought that with you. And I don't necessarily know if that was there to that extent. And you guys have continued it the same way Tom did nationally. And so on and so forth. What's so important to you about that portion of your work? Because it sounds like it's a continuation from how you think about your on-air service.
Yeah. You mean giving back? It's just important in any profession. If you reach a certain level in life, give back. That's all. That doesn't take much. Give of your time, give of your finances if you can. Just whatever you can do. It's Christmas coming. If you know some kids that are in the need of toys, just bless others. You're a blessing, bless others. That's the most simple way I can put it. You got to have a heart for people and, to give back and to want them to see those smiles on their faces and just all of that, that's so rewarding. It just is. It's a feel-good moment. And that's just what it's all about,
Some people don't take it though. And that's the thing that I always find interesting is that we have to have these conversations because somebody's not making that choice. And I always am interested at what motivates people for it, because we all have our own motivations and reasons why we give of ourselves. But, it's like that heart of service is a very different approach to life. Yeah. And I always wonder, what happens to make it missing sometimes for some folks. So I always like to ask for the people who it's so present.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be upbringing. It could be just, you're just selfish. you're just not a good person.
Shirley Strawberry with the truth, ladies and gentlemen, with the honest to God truth. Lord.
Yeah.
Shirley, listen, girl, I have two questions I always ask people as I wrap up the podcast. So the first one is, I know, girl, look, we've been talking for a minute.
Oh, really?
Yes. I love that it has flown by for you though.
Yeah, it has. It
really and you know
has.
What? Before I ask my last two questions, is there anything you want to share that nobody has ever asked you before that I haven't thought to ask you about today?
You can ask me, how does it feel to be a grandmother?
How does it feel to be a grandmama, a Mimi, a Gima?
They call me Mimi. It's, it's the best thing in the whole wide world. When my daughter first told me she was pregnant, I thought I was going to die. I really, really did.
That was a test of that aging gracefully, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I thought I was going to die. And one of the first things I said to her was like, wait a minute, you don't even know if I was ready to be a grandmother. I'm not old enough to be a grandmother. Turns out I am, though. Imagine that. But it's just so wonderful. I have a granddaughter, Jade, who's 7, and a grandson, Max, who's 5, and they're the joy of my life. That's all I can say. It feels wonderful to be a grandmother. And I can't see them enough. I can't hug them enough. I can't buy them enough. I can't spoil them enough. So yeah, I'm all in. I'm all in.
I want to dig into this a little more. Hold up. We're going to talk a little longer now.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is that tie into aging gracefully and finding and bringing into the world another generation and passing on and enjoying them a different way. How did becoming a grandmother affect how you saw yourself and how you move in the world and how you work and how you are Shirley Strawberry. Like it's this other identity that gets added on to who you are, in addition to wife and mother and, powerhouse
Okay.
on the radio.
Okay, Jeanne, you got me. Okay, full transparency. I was pissed at first. I really, really was. What do you mean I'm a grandmother? What? I can't be I'm too young. All of that. I did not. This is full transparency. Jeanne Sparrow. This might be an exclusive too.
Oh,
I did not even mention that I had grandkids on the radio for at least a year.
it took you that long to make peace with that?
Yeah. For at least a year. Not because mainly, and my daughter will probably kill me, but mainly because I was ashamed because she wasn't married. I was embarrassed because she wasn't married. And, we weren't raised like that. So I had to grapple with all of those things, and then I had my mom in my ear. She was embarrassed because my daughter was with my mom for a lot of the time because our working hours are so crazy. So I had so much guilt. I blamed myself. Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I blamed myself. Pardon me. I'm sorry. Dang,
you know what?
Right
Don't be
there.
sorry. You know what? You saying some stuff that's important. Take a moment, have yourself some water, and we're gonna finish this part. Because I'm all ears. Everybody can wait.
Water. I need a drink. No.
Maybe I should be sending people bottles of champagne to do this show with me.
Yeah. So it took me a long, long, long time, to embrace this. I'm like I said, I'm all in now. But yeah, it was a hard struggle for me. And mainly I was embarrassed. What is everybody going to say? And I usually don't care what people think about me. Normally I don't. Say whatever you want. I don't care. But this particular thing got me, girl. It really, really did, because of all the ramifications, because I thought, I guess that's selfish on my part, because I thought people would come to me, question my parenting skills, say that I was a bad mom, because I wasn't present in her life every day because my mom had her so much, So I had to deal with all that stuff. And it took me at least a year to even, I never even mentioned it. Now I'm still, it's slowly trickling out about my grandkids and how much I love them. But yeah, it took me a while. It really, really did.
How long from the time your daughter told you about it to when you got to where's the faith? That question you always ask yourself. How long did it take you from the time that she said that for you to remember that foundation and start to work through it?
Okay, in that particular incident, where's your faith did not come up. Sorry. It didn't.
Interesting.
It didn't. It was devastating to me. I mean, I told you, I thought I was going to die. I really did. And I know a lot of people may not be able to understand that. And I get that. I get that too. But for me, Shirley Strawberry, the woman who gives the advice on the radio and all of this kind of stuff, and to have something like this happen, it was hard for me to deal with, it was hard for me to deal with. And it took me a long time, like I said, to deal with it. And it took a lot of prayer, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of, and meanwhile, I didn't mention her on the radio, but she was my love, my little beautiful granddaughter, Jade. She was my love, but I just did not share her or tell, but yeah. Yeah, that was a tough period. That was a really, really tough period.
Shirley, thank you for sharing that. Because you know what? Here's the thing I
You're
see
welcome.
in this. The thing I see in this is that it's a gift for those of us who struggle with things, because like and I talk about this when my dad died. There were a lot of things I had to start facing about myself. I'm an adopted kid, and I had to start facing some things that I had put on a shelf. You know,
Mm-hmm.
things that you're like, okay, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna deal with that later. I'm gonna deal
Yeah.
with that later. And but here's the thing, God keeps bringing you back the lessons that you need to learn and the stuff you need to
Mm-hmm.
work through. And
Mm-hmm.
you finally
Mm-hmm.
have to face it at some point in time. And that mess will break you all the way down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All the way down. And that's what it sounds like. It sounds like this really wasn't about your daughter having a baby as much as it was about you feeling that way about yourself and judging yourself
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
choices you had to
Yeah.
make,
Mm-hmm.
even
Yeah.
though everything turned out fine.
Yeah. I had so much guilt. It was like, this is
Mhm.
my fault. If I had been there for her, she would
Yeah,
not have had this baby.
yeah,
All of those things. And you know what else it did? It made me go back and look at my relationship with my mom.
yeah.
you know and while it was great, but in those crazy teen years, from about 15 to 18, when you're smelling yourself and you're thinking you're grown and all of that, I gave I gave my mom, I gave my mom some problems, let me tell you. So I thought about all of that. I thought about all of that, all those years, and I said, okay, this is the deal. This is, so we've worked it out. We've worked it out, but yeah, it was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle. Hmm.
God's blessings on y'all
Thank you.
for A, facing it, and B, coming through the other side and sharing it. Because I think that's the reason why most of us don't face our stuff, is because we're scared about it not working out. And it
Yeah.
always does.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
where the faith comes in, when you
Uh-huh.
have the faith that it will
Yeah.
work out in the
Yeah.
end.
Hmm.
Lord have
And it
mercy.
did.
And you were supposed to tell that story today, because that was a message, ma'am. That was a message. So
Yeah.
now we can fall to my last two questions. I
Okay.
always like to end with,
Uh-huh.
what is your proudest achievement, and what do you still dream of doing?
Wow. Professionally, my proudest achievement, or just in life?
Yes, either one, whatever you choose.
Um,
Some people choose both. If you want to do both,
uh,
I'm good with that.
I'll say this. I'll say, I'm proud of the fact that, and we talked about this earlier, Jeanne, you and I, that I have lasted this long. I am proud of that, that I'm still here. I'm still relevant, because it didn't have to be this way, so I'm thankful for that blessing, and that I can still do what I do at a high level. I'm proud of that, and I'm happy about that, and I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to do it every day. So that's one thing in life. Just in life, just I don't know that I'm still here. I guess the same thing. I'm still here too,
Yeah.
and I can still laugh and have fun, and life is good, and I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm a good person.
I love it. And I love that you know that. What do you still dream of doing?
Oh my God. So many things. I'm starting to paint a little more. I kind of want I don't know. I kind of want my art to get out there. I'm feeling real artsy these days.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah. So maybe that's it. Maybe
Well,
that's it.
when you do your first show, ma'am, or your next show,
I will let you know.
please let me know. And
Okay.
so maybe we'll have a whole other conversation about your art and your
Mhm.
expression and how that works out, because that's a whole other track that I forgot that you were an artist too. Like, duh.
I didn't do this picture in the back. People will probably wonder if I did that, but no, I
It's
didn't.
gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
it doesn't surprise me that you're surrounded by so many beautiful things, because most artists do surround themselves with art that they love.
I'm
And
a
the last
creator.
question,
Mhm.
the last question I always ask everybody on the podcast: when do you feel like you are at your best, truest, most authentic expression of yourself?
Wow. Okay. That's good. That's good, Jeanne.
Thank
It's
you. I'm
deep
honored.
too. Yeah, it's
I'm honored, because baby, you've been interviewing people longer than me. I'm like, ooh.
that's good, and it's deep, and I'm not that deep, so
You are.
I gotta dig deep. My truest. I guess when I'm with my friends, we're sitting around and we're just kicking it and having fun and laughing and acting crazy, and no one's judging anyone, and we may talk about God in one conversation, and and talk about I don't know, a reality show, one of the housewives shows, just being we'll go from one extreme to the other. Just probably when I'm with my friends and my family, and I can be myself, and kick it. Maybe no makeup, or maybe makeup, and just I like that. I like being around people. I like that. I do. I love company.
That.
I love company.
I love it. Well, I want to be one of your company too, because
Yes.
it sounds like you like to kick it, and that's a good time. And anybody that can take from God to the housewives, baby, that's a full and complete life.
Yes. That's how I really relax, is ratchet TV. The more ratchet it is, the better I like it.
All right, love and hip hop.
Yes, all of you. Yes.
Shirley, thank you so much for making time and taking all of this energy to talk with me, especially when you're not feeling 100%. I appreciate you, and the path that you paved for people like me and those who come behind me too. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jeanne. It's really an honor. I mean, seriously, it's an honor to be with you. I mean, you make me proud. That's all I can say, is you make me so, so, so proud. You really do. And if I had any inkling, anything to do with that, then what can I say? I mean, you do it well. You do it well. Thank you.
Thank you, my love. I appreciate you. You're the best. You are the
No, you are.
Shirley, thank you for that conversation. I enjoyed it so much. I mean, you don't often get to talk to people who inspire you in the way that you would like to. So having that much time with somebody who means that much to me is just the world. Now, here's some highlights I want to pull out from my conversation with Shirley. There are so many of them, but the first one being about being the best you can be, no matter what position you're playing. I think we all want to be superstars, and we are in our own right, but sometimes we are meant to do different things with other people, and we may not be in the lead. And even when the spotlight isn't just on us, if we can make the person who is in the lead, who is in the spotlight, look good, that is our job in that moment, and we are a superstar in that moment. And that's sometimes a hard one for our egos to take, but it's a long-lived lesson. The other piece is being comfortable with ourselves, not just being ourselves, but being comfortable with ourselves, because by doing that, then it shows other people they can be comfortable showing themselves and being themselves and keeping that cycle going of that kind of authenticity, so that, young women, young men, young people can become who they are and be competent and strong, because that's where the strength is. And I loved all the advice from her mother and grandmother. If you can't make a dime, make a nickel. Honey, listen, once you realize one thing is impossible, then take the next thing that is possible and build on that. I love it. And then that habit of asking, where is your faith? Where is your faith? A lot of us talk about our faith and remember it in certain moments, but sometimes when we are particularly challenged, that's when we lose sight of it and forget about it. And is it really faith if you don't exercise it in those trying, challenging times? It's still there. We just have to remember that it's there and lean on it. So again, thank you, Shirley, for making the time. As my friend Melissa Foreman says, for taking the moment. I love that conversation, and I will treasure it forever. And I hope that it blesses you too. I appreciate you, my Fearless Authenticity listeners, for your attention, for your support. I could not and would not do this without you or my amazing production team. It literally wouldn't happen without them. I do hope that you will rate, review, download, subscribe, and share this episode wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. The video version is there. And please join my community on social media at JM Sparrow, or at Ms. Jeanne Sparrow. And drop your comments, your questions, your thoughts, your suggestions. I love hearing them all. This has been Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. We'll see you again soon.